season starts here, the Vancouver Boat Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vancouver Boat Show. We are coming to you from Toronto, and Jane, my partner, Jane Finn, is in another location. I'm here in our home, and she's visiting. And we're going to do a little presentation about sailing Newfoundland South Coast, which I don't know how many people from BC will be getting out that way in a boat, but it's always great to travel there. And all of, or many of these places that we'll be showing you can be accessed if you're camping or traveling by car or hiking, etc. So we hope you enjoy the show. We've been sailing down there since 2013 and we're Great Lakes sailors. We live in Cobourg, just east of Toronto. And the crew on this voyage is Jane and myself. And we've been sailing together since 1998. We've explored many of the Great Lakes, and we sailed a down East Circle to Halifax, Boston, and New York. And we spent the last many seasons cruising in Newfoundland and Labrador. We were planning and still are planning an Atlantic crossing, but that's kind of on hold due to the pandemic. And this is our new boat, or new to us, that we just got in 2018. It's a 2006 Naiad 40, and we're very happy with it. We're still kind of learning the ropes on it, but it's a good sailboat. It's very comfortable. Yep, it's a little bit deep draft is what we're noticing. We had a Niagara 35 previously that we sailed for about 17 seasons. In our other trips down the St. Lawrence, in the upper left, you can see Lake Ontario, the Great Lakes, Lake Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Lake Ontario. We've departed from Lake Ontario and gone down the St. Lawrence River to Montreal and Quebec City, or Kingston, Montreal, Quebec City, and then visited many, many little fishing harbors. We've done both the North Shore of Côte Nord in Quebec, and as well as the south coast to Gaspe. We don't have time to cover the whole route down the St. Lawrence, so we're going to start this show from Gaspe, which will be this area here, part 2. So we'll try and cover all the harbors departing from Gaspe, across Gulf de Madeleine, Cabot Strait, and along the south coast of Newfoundland, and then a few harbors going up to the central east coast, where we keep our boat in Lewisport. Sailing down the river, we've always found Captain Cheryl Barr's Down East Circle route to be really invaluable for route planning and tide planning. And there's some significant tides as you get down the river from the Great Lakes. Interestingly enough, in Lake Ontario, we have only 1 inch of tide. But at Quebec City, there's 18 feet, or about 6 meters. So there's a big change, and that's something for us to get used to coming from the Great Lakes. These excellent guides, Cruising Guide to Newfoundland, are from the Cruising Club of America. These are great for getting in and out of harbors. They're written by sailors, for sailors. And my note here is that there's a summary of all the harbors on this presentation on our website. If you go to gonesailingfinnevans.ca. But as I said, we don't have time to cover all the harbors heading down from Lake Ontario, and there is quite a few of them. Small harbors, big harbors. Quebec City is a fantastic stop. Montreal is interesting too. So we're going to start here, and this on the right here on the chart is Cap Gaspe that you can see, and that is there's a towering cliff there with there's a beautiful national park there, Parc Forillon, bird colonies, and anyway, sailing down river from Lake Ontario. We're about 3 days to Montreal, 5 days to Quebec City, and maybe 3 weeks to Gaspe, something like that. We like to take our time. This last trip, this is 2019 in August, we were sailing, July and August. We were 23 days to Gaspe from Lake Ontario. And that's no overnight sails, all just day sailing. Gaspe has a wonderful marina. It's very up to date. They have good services. And we plan to wait for a weather window because it's about 250, 300 miles across from Gaspe to the island of Newfoundland. And the weather can be significant. Even in the summer, you do have to plan quite, be carefully. But Marina Gaspe is ideally situated. It's just the town is just here across the bridge. You can walk over. There's lots of shopping. There's great restaurants. There's fuel. There's access to transportation, fresh water on the docks, etc. So we find it's a great stop to make the plan to get across. And this is what the route will look like. It'll be just a single overnight, and we'll be looking at, because we consider it a passage. This is the ocean now. We're not in the Great Lakes anymore. So we'll be looking at all kinds of things, and just checking to make sure that we have a good weather window, fair winds, and we're trying to do some tide planning so that we don't hit the currents coming into Cabot Strait, and provisioning and meal planning, etc., which Jane likes to organize. Oh, and there's an option if the weather turns bad, which it can out here in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. There's the Ile de Madeleine here, the Madeleine Islands, and there's some excellent harbors here. So we could just veer off course and overnight here, or even spend a few days in the Ile de Madeleine. It's very beautiful. It's all sand dunes there. So we put together a weather analysis, and what we're looking for is really just some sort of wind that's anything but east, because the course is almost due east. And we'd had 2-3 weeks on the boat. Although the boat's new to us, we, some of the systems we're still working bugs out and things. And we were thinking that tides and currents wouldn't really be an issue. Well, I'll talk a bit more about that. And vessel safety, of course, watch keeping. Someone's always got to be on deck because it's a very busy shipping. This is a major upbound and downbound route for Atlantic shipping coming into Quebec and Montreal and up to the Great Lakes. And provisioning and meal planning. Jane usually pre-prepares all our meals for the first 24 hours or 48 hours just to make it a little bit easier to get started going. And Jane often likes to talk about this slide. Are you there?
I am here. And so these are some slides showing, some of the preparations that we do before we head off on something like crossing the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Just as you approach Newfoundland, there is, of course, Wreck House. Just tells you how strong the winds can be there. But at any rate, one of the most important things that we consider when we head offshore are lee cloths. So here we've got our lee cloths set up. We did a little crewing for a friend going from Beaufort, North Carolina to Nassau last December. The boat was not outfitted with lee cloths. So you can see here, Mike has a black eye because he got thrown off his berth by some rough weather. Here is our companionway and, the side decks here in the cockpit. This little item here is our sort of snack and lunch bag that is always there. So that if the weather is a bit rough, we don't have to go down below to prepare food before we head out on, an overnight. Typically, when you first set out on any kind of overnight trip, you have to get your sea legs. So being prepared in advance, I think, is important. So this little bag is full of sandwiches, drinks, snacks. We also have our headlamps. This is, of course, the chart plotter. But you can also see here, we both have our life jackets on. Tethers are installed. And this is our little mascot, Twilligan. And he is tied to the mast with his little buddy Bird. And we're all set to go. So back to you, Mike.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, and another thing, we always we have big thermoses, and we fill our thermoses with hot soup, and just things, chili, something that's going to keep us going overnight for the first 24, maybe 48 hours. So it does make it a lot easier to get started, because we're coming off a long, kind of lake sailing. We haven't been out in the ocean for, gosh, it's over a year that we've been back in the Great Lakes, almost 2 years actually. So anyway, it's a little bit complicated as you get out on the river and into the banks, because the banks, there's lots of fishing. The offshore banks, there's a great deal of fishing and a great deal of weather coming and going. And we're used to fast moving Great Lakes systems, but there's also very fast moving and much larger Atlantic systems coming in through Cabot Strait. So we like to try and memorize the different weather regions so that we understand the spoken forecast. We do also have an Iridium Go, so we can download forecasts as well. And of course, we're always getting it from Environment Canada's website as well. And a good thing that we found is to monitor what's actively being fished, because all these in the lower right here, this shows lobster fishing areas, but there's many active shoal fisheries in the Gulf de Madeleine. So if you know what kind of boats are going to be out there, you can look at the website and understand what sort of traffic that you're going to run into. We were there after June 30th rather, so there was no active lobster fishery, which was nice, because Gulf of Madeleine is very, very busy with lobster fishers. The course looks like this, and you can see Cabot Strait and the purple area. These are the traffic separation zones for commercial shipping. So we're going to be crossing the commercial shipping, and I always like to set a waypoint on each side so we know when we're in it, when we're in the middle of it, and when we're actually leaving the other side. And also you can see all these lines coming from North Sydney here off of Cape Breton. These are the ferries that travel from North Sydney to Port Aux Basques, and so you have to watch out for them, because they're running pretty much 24 hours. Now we thought a good a good plan to deal with the tides. We departed Gaspe at 6 a.m. on an ebb tide, which was giving us about 1 knot boost to our boat speed. Unfortunately, the weather turned against us, and we wound up arriving just after the flood tide at Port aux Basques, which is the major Atlantic tide entering Cabot Strait. So we were severely set for about the last 40 or 50 miles against the tide, and our speed dropped way down. Huge square waves built up, and it became very uncomfortable. In hindsight, we would maybe depart, instead of at 6 a.m., maybe at 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. or something like that. So if the weather turned bad, we'd be getting in rather than at dusk. We barely got in, with the fading light. Oh, and another little bug in our system was off of Cap Gaspe, we have our new boat has a furling main, and it works really well. It's much easier. You don't have to, unbag it and do all those things and raise it because it's always raised. But a batten, it has vertical battens, and one came through. You can just see one here on the upper right. One poked through the pocket and stuck in the mast as it was coming out and created a huge ball of cloth inside the mast. And we anchored. We thought we could, unsnarl it, but we wound up going all the way back to Gaspe, about 25 miles. And spending a whole day at the dock figuring out how to do that. And you have to wind it in really tight and tighter and tighter, and then pull it out an inch at a time and wind it in. And we didn't know that because it's new to us. So we left in a couple of days later, and the weather window was not ideal. It was foggy and there was no wind. So, but the wind was supposed to go southeast, or more or less favorable. And we had some excellent sailing across the Gulf of Madeline overnight, light winds, and, it was very pleasant. Lots of freighters out there. We did see a lot of ships. But as we got nearing Cabot Strait, the wind switched to pretty much due east and picked up 20, 30 knots. And the outflowing St. Lawrence was hitting the incoming tide, which built up nice big square waves, and it became very uncomfortable for the last 40, 50 miles. You can just see here our speed over ground on the chart plotter is only 3.5 knots. And we should be motor sailing at about 7.5, maybe even 8 knots if we had half a knot behind us. So that's Port aux Basques in the background, and it seemed to take forever to get there. But this is Cape Ray, which marks the southwest corner of Newfoundland. It's fantastic. There's huge mountains here, and it's all shrouded in fog. And this is the PAB light, Channel Head light. And this is just as we were getting in, it was just getting dark. The harbor traffic controller was helping us, talking us in on the VHF, telling us, yep, you'll be there soon, don't worry. And we just snuck in to the dock. All the yellow painted docks are government wharfs, and anyone can stay there. You can see on the chartlet here, there's the ferry route in. The ticked line here, and there's the ferry from North Sydney behind us. But this was kind of fun.
Oh, this is the...
I'll go back on that one. A great summer pastime in Newfoundland is squid jigging. And that's what all these people were down there doing. And we thought there'd be nobody there on the dock, but it was actually somebody caught our backstay with their squid jig. It's just like a really multi-barbed hook. And it was kind of fun. We've never actually seen people squid jigging before. So it was now August 12th, and we made it to the South Coast. Crossing, our summary was that we had also problems. Our autopilot stopped working, and we spent a whole day or a day and a half with Ray Marine on the phone, and we could not fix it. We're still fixing it, and anyway, the main furling that was a problem, and we did fix that. The route plan was good, but we did hit the flood tide because we were delayed because the wind went east and the weather was pretty nasty. But when we got to the South Coast, it was all good because there is tons to explore. This is an old chart of Newfoundland South Coast, the French coast, they call it sometimes. Port aux Basques here on the left, Cape Ray, and Cape Race here all the way on the southeast corner. So much to explore, and that's what we like to do, is just kind of poke along in and out of harbors. Port aux Basques is a good place to come into. It's a larger town in Newfoundland of over 4,000 people, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 in the summertime. And as Jane said, Wreckhouse Bay nearby is considered the windiest place in Canada. I don't know, there's probably places in BC that would like to or could claim that title too, but it often blows very significantly to the extent that 18-wheelers and camper trucks are blown off the road there. We stay in harbor, and the people driving should stay in the campground when that happens. Anyway, one nice thing about sailing in Newfoundland are the costs. And you can see this is our bill for the government dock at Port aux Basques, and we were charged $8.69, plus $1.30 for tax. So a grand total of $10 per night. Lots of nice people there. We met people from Quebec, a nice family from Quebec City, I think, and sailors from North Sydney, and many friendly locals. People are so nice in Newfoundland. They always stop to talk, and they offer you rides. People will take you to get fuel and food. They really are concerned that you're, okay and having a good time. Across from the harbor is Scotts Cove Park, and there was music and dancing every night, actually, and the weather cooperated. It did not rain. It wasn't foggy, and I don't think we've danced that much in many years. The ferries come and go just behind us, and they're big car ferries, of course, and it's very impressive. They back into their slip, something that we rarely, if ever, do. And after a few days, we provisioned, and it's time to sail on. And these are the harbors we're going to try and get to on the south coast. Isle of Morts is just nearby, and we have friends there. It looks like, or it might be Ile aux Morts in French, but it's set in on the south coast as Isle aux Morts. Just a little hop, only 10 miles away or something from Port aux Basques. And the weather, and this was now mid-August 2019, was fantastic. People said they'd never seen the weather so nice. It often can be kind of down east, a little bit foggy and rainy, off and on, but it was very, very sunny and warm. Another government wharf there in Isle aux Morts, and there we met two sailors from Vancouver on Ave des Mars, and they came the long way via Cape Horn, Betty and Louise, and they're really nice people, great sailors. They've been everywhere, South Georgia and Cape Town, and just all the places we'd love to go. We were able to have dinner with them there. There's a little restaurant on Isle aux Morts, as well as good hiking trail. Newfoundland is great for hiking. There's lots of hiking and walking. Not some of it's difficult, but lots of it's just gentle and rolling. And they've laid it out nicely for campers, visitors, boaters. There's lots of people hiking and walking there. And Jane, you like to talk about this slide, I think, don't you?
Sure. So in Isle aux Morts is this little safe haven cafe, and it's kind of named after this family, the Harveys, who rescued on several occasions many people from these shipwrecks off the coast here. And they would send their big Newfoundland dog, Hairy Man, out with a line out to the ship, and then people would come along that line. I think the one ship in particular, they rescued something like 260 people. Another one was like 25 people. So it's a famous family, and the dog Hairy Man is a famous Newfoundland dog.
Yep. Yes. And the Coast Guard ship Anne Harvey is named after the Harvey's daughter. I don't know if you mentioned that. Sorry, I was looking at the chat there for a moment. And also just across from the town is the true island of Isle aux Morts. And these are our friends Roger and Joanne on their boat against the wind. And we just went out and anchored. There's a neat little anchorage called Squid Hole, or Squiddle as they call it. And it's just a really compact, very beautiful little spot there. Another short and easy day sail east takes us to Rose Blanche, is the way Newfoundlanders pronounce this one. And interesting, we're seeing many more kind of southern species along the Newfoundland coast. Leatherback turtles, the sunfishes. We saw lots of sunfishes. And a few years ago in Conception Bay, I saw a great white shark. Came up right behind the boat. And I said, Jane, there's a huge shark. And of course, he went under the water. She never believes me. But I was, wow, amazed. And this is going into Rose Blanche. It is a fishing community, of course. And there's a government wharf there. And yeah, this is considered the French shore. So many of the names have French roots. The French fishermen arrived in the early 1700s, and there we are in the government wharf. And you can tie up on any yellow painted wharf, apparently, but as we found out, you're best to ask if there's no room, you can tie to a fishing boat, but you should ask, because we tied to one, or almost tied to one, but the deckhand came out and said, I don't think you want to tie to him because they're leaving at 5 a.m. to go fishing. You should tie to that boat, and because they're not going out. So good idea to ask, unless you want to get up at 5 a.m. and go fishing. Yeah, we had a lovely time there and met it was a family there visiting, I think from Alberta or something, with these girls, wasn't it, Jane?
They were cousins. One was from Ottawa and one was from Calgary. Rose Blanche is connected by road. So there's actually quite a few visitors there. They come out to see the beautiful stone lighthouse at Rose Blanche.
Yep, it's a Stevenson lighthouse engineered in Edinburgh, Scotland, built in 1871 from granite, and it's been beautifully restored just in the last 20 years, I believe. And this is a view out at the lighthouse. So we like to walk, and it sits out on the neck, or Le Cou, I think in French it's called. And Harbour Le Cou is just around the corner. And Rose Blanche comes from White Rock, Roche Blanche, which is also around the corner at Diamond Cove. And the town has about 400 residents right now, because they are connected by road to Port Aux Basques and up to Corner Brook, some of the major centers. But since the cod moratorium, many of these little harbors we're going to visit going east from here are more or less closed since the moratorium of 92. There's just no work. And this map shows the ferry coming from North Sydney on the left. And the dotted lines are the still functioning coastal steamer that connects these outports. And outports are those towns that are not connected by the road. So you can see the Highway 470 connects Rose Blanche to Port aux Basques, and Burgeo here in the middle is connected by this spur road 480 that goes up to Stephenville. But then all along here, there are no roads at all. Boats only, or you could hike in, I guess. So we stopped. Little Garia is just, there was a settlement there, but there's nothing there. Few cabins in the summer, that's about all. Overnight stop there, and then we went on to Grand Bruit. And this is the Cruising Club of America book that Jane's holding up. And it's got excellent photos and, kind of hand-drawn charts and good information for getting in and out of all these little places. We do use the Canadian sailing directions too, and we do have paper charts and avionics and Canadian hydrographic surveys charts as well. But Grand Brit is largely unoccupied. It was closed in 2010, I believe. So all the residents were given kind of a package and relocated. So possibly they were, bought out, or, people do still retain their roots there, because the communities are very important to them, and they often come back in the summer just to go fishing and enjoy the summer lifestyle there. And Grand Brit is there's a waterfall right in the middle of town, and that's the Grand Brit is the big noise, I guess. In going east from there, we come into we're going into Cinq Cerf Bay, Culotte Cove, which is in behind here. And we're using both navionics, is the yellow chartlet behind. And on top is the Max C. And when you drill down into Max C, you can tell that what they're really presenting in navionics is just a kind of redigitized version of this very old late 1800s chart. But we had no problem getting in there. We found that the charting is actually really very good all over. We've been all around the island and up to Labrador. There are a few anomalies, but generally the old surveys are excellent, and the new ones are good too. And Cinq Cerf Bay is just a marvelous spot. Beautiful, wild. It's fairly, it's kind of, closed off. It's not open to the ocean, so the water was fairly warm. I actually got in for a swim. And Jane, what did we see there?
Yes, we had no sooner dropped anchor than I looked up to the top of the bay, and there was this caribou, strolling along the edge of the bay in the water, stopping to nibble, moving along. And then she actually, so here she strolled along, went onto this little bit of a beach, curled up and had a sleep. And so we were there, just not far from her, trying to keep quiet, and totally mesmerized by, the sight of this caribou. We had never seen a live caribou before, and it was so fabulous to see one up close like this. It was just amazing. They're beautiful animals.
Yep. Yeah, we were really, really lucky to see her. And these are woodland caribou. They don't herd. They're kind of solitary animals, and you often see them roaming around by themselves. There's just a little tiny bit of video here. It's about 60 seconds from our drone that just shows the cove. And typical kind of Newfoundland anchorage. Labrador, we've been way up the coast, up to Cartwright, Labrador, and there's just thousands of spots like this too. Sit and relax and get out hiking. So we enjoyed it so much that I think we spent three nights there, Jane, something like that.
Yeah,
So
I
it was
think
one of our longest stops on the whole trip. We had a full moon and stars, and it was just marvelous. But the following day, we were on to more of a down east kind of day, and we were going to Burgeo, which is about, I think, 35 miles further east. We had rain and wind on the nose and fog. And we wanted to get into the Marine Service Center, which is in the Tickle. And a tickle in Newfoundland is a ticklish entrance. And this was small and rocky. And we we probably could have got in there, but we didn't know it well, so we chose to anchor out behind the town. You can see the town here is the Tickles right here where my cursor is. We anchored up in Short Reach just because we didn't know it, and it was blowing pretty good, as you can see from the picture. So, but we do have lots of chain, and we've got one of these fancy new spade anchors, which work just great. There's lots of kelp there, just like the West Coast. But the following day, the sun was out again, and we moved in down to Marine Service Center, which is really just the government wharf, but there's some other things thrown in there. Lots of people doing busy on the food fishery, and every Newfoundlander gets to catch 5 fish per day when the season is open, and they will freeze them or can them or something, but keep them for the winter. So there were lots of people fishing. There were other yachts there, young couple on this beautiful, huge, big catamaran. They even had their mom and dad with them. And June Hiscock is the manager there at Burgeo, and she was very accommodating, and she found somebody would give us a ride into the supermarket. And we also got fresh water, and I think there's no fuel on the dock. There's almost no fuel anywhere on the South Coast. On fuel docks, you have to go and get it in your jerry cans. But a nice thing there is a short walk, just, I don't know, 4 or 5 kilometers away is Sandbanks Park. And so it was just ideal. Jane likes to paint, and I take pictures. So we spent the day exploring there. And back to you, Jane. What's this? This is we just made this a couple of days ago here in the house, but.
Yeah. So inevitably, when you're in Newfoundland, even if you don't fish yourself and catch your own cod, which you can do without a license, but only on particular times of the month and whatnot when the food fishery is open, because the cod moratorium is still in effect. So there's very limited commercial fishing. But if you don't fish yourself, somebody will give you fish. And in Newfoundland, when they say fish, they mean cod. Anything else is referred to by name. It's halibut, it's salmon, but fish is cod. And I found this wonderful New York Times recipe for cod au gratin, which is basically a poached cod with an au gratin sauce, and then it's put on top of a baked pasta, and then you finish it off, sprinkle some cheese on top, and finish it off baked in the oven. And it's one of our favorite things to eat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, I can vouch for that. Actually, we have here where we live in Ontario, there is a local Newfoundlander, and we actually get fresh Newfoundland cod from him. So there is some around, not nearly as much as it was in the good old days, unfortunately. So to the next day, we're sailing on to Grey River, and Grey River is a true outport. There is no road there. And it is a real inlet. And on the west side, I think, of the inlet, as you go in, the outport of Jert's Cove is there, nestled in the hill. And I think there's, I'm not sure how many people living there, but here on the lower left, that is the coastal steamer. And I think it pops in at Burgeo and goes to Ramey Island. There's a fairly large town at Ramey, and then just across here to Grey River, Jert's Cove. That's what I believe these are the functioning coastal steamer routes for the outports right now. So they're still servicing these ones here. So there's a year-round residence. And it's a great anchorage. We couldn't actually believe how flat it was in there. I think, you can see on the chart, yes, it was 10 meters, and it was like this entire thing was 10 meters deep and filled with mud. We put the hook down and got a little windy overnight, but it was absolutely no problem. And we reprised our cod au gratin for another night. And another hop along the coast is Franz Way, as it's pronounced on the Newfoundland south coast. You might say Francois, but they like to say it Franz Way, and it's just a fantastic little pocket inlet with huge towering cliffs all the way around. And we were meeting our friends on Splice, and they're from Philadelphia, and they've been sailing in Newfoundland for coming up from the States and sailing there for many years.
And Kit and Adrian are actually one of the participants in the audience here today.
Oh, are they?
They are. Kit
Oh,
said
famous.
hi.
Oh, famous sailors. Well, and they're right there. Hello, hello, famous sailors from Philadelphia. Anyway, that is the two of us at, and there's a floating, not a wharf, but a dock. This is one of the few places in, on the South Coast, you'll find a floating dock. And there we are way down in the bottom. There's a great walk up to Charlie's Head. There's stairs and a boardwalk climbs way up the hill. It was boiling hot. And across this peak here, that's, I think, a couple of hours. That's called Monk's Head. We didn't do that one. But up to Charlie's Head was just, the weather was divine. And it was just, there was blueberries and, the sun was out. There was no bugs, maybe a few bugs, but not too many. But the next day was, it changed like this. It blew like 40 knots out in the ocean. But our friends had just come back from St Pierre, the French islands, and they had a few bottles, at least 2 bottles of French wine. So we sat on their ship and kept warm and dry. The following day, we did get out. It just blew overnight, and the wind pushed the seas right up to the shore. So the next day when we went out, there was like big rolly waves coming in, and it was very, very kind of uncomfortable because we were sailing parallel to the coast, and the wind had come, I think, from the southeast. So, but you can just see the stark beauty of this particular part of the south coast, and it looks a lot like southern Labrador too. Is very similar. It's just so striking. Every place you go, it's like a painting. And this is going up to Hare Bay, and it's a very long, not by BC standards. It's pretty, I think 10, 15 miles up to the anchorage here. And one of the only places were accompanied by another sailboat. And there was, I think, a man and his daughter on a 27-footer or something. You can see a waterfall here in the background. And unfortunately, we didn't have much more time to spend because we wanted to get over to St Pierre and Miquelon, the French islands that are really part of France. But there was a weather issue coming. This is late summer of 2019. So we're up here on the upper left in Hare Bay. And it's about 60 miles across to St Pierre and Miquelon. The North Island is Miquelon. The South Island is St Pierre. And as you sail out from Hare Bay, about 20 miles out, you actually cross the French border, and you're in French international waters. You can see it. You can see actually there's a red. Maybe you can't see it. There's a red line here. That is the actual border between Canada and France. And as we got across the border, we were met by French dolphins. Unfortunately, I didn't get them with the GoPro, like so many people do with it under the water. I couldn't get but we had a marvelous day, and we left early because we wanted to get in. We wanted to get in well before it got dark because it is an international harbor, and we need to check in with customs and immigration, French customs and immigration. So we got across in very good time. Actually, we're in well before dark. I guess we were a little bit scared because of it was touch and go coming into Port aux Basques. And this is what the harbor looks like. You can see it is a very, very big and busy harbor with all kinds of marks, and there is commercial shipping and everything else there. So, but it turned out to be no problem, although we chose the wrong side of the dock because the wind decided to come from that way, from that side, and pasted us on the dock. And there's a little yacht club there. And St Pierre has about 6,000 people, and there's direct flights to Paris, France. Incredible. And there's the customs. So you need your ship's papers, passports, and probably leave your cannabis at home. But they were very nice, very efficient. As soon as we tied up, they were right there, and they said, please, we would like to come on your ship. And they just took all of about 15 minutes, and they checked us in. But the first thing, and this is there's 2 new ferries, and the ferry goes from St Pierre to Fortune, on the Newfoundland coast. So you can come if you're traveling, by car. You can come there on the ferry on foot or with your car also. The first thing to do is to go to the bank machine and get euros, lots of them, because over to you, Jane.
Yes, yes. Well, the patisserie. So it's you're in France. So all the wonderful French food. There's lots of French items imported into Saint Pierre Miquelon, but this patisserie is within just a few minutes walk of the harbor. So it's a delight to go in and get your croissants and all that sort of stuff, because, the South Shore of Newfoundland, there's not a lot of great shopping. It's kind of little corner store kind of places. There is provisioning in Port aux Basques, bigger shops there, but once you get, past there, there's minimal shopping. There's a grocery store in Burgeo, but it's pretty basic. So it's wonderful to go to the boucherie, charcuterie, épicerie, and here we have a selection of French cheeses. This pyramid is from
Miquelon.
No, Miquelon.
Miquelon.
The pyramid is a Miquelon cheese. We've got smoked salmon. We've got, all the pastries, the eclairs. So it's just, a delight to go to France. And It's so easy. It's just like right there.
And French wine, too.
And French wine. Absolutely.
So right across from St Pierre, there's a great museum, and we went to see, and it's all about it's just fascinating history. It goes back hundreds of years, and it's all about fishing. And these are, I think, 18th century fishermen's leather boots. But they said we should go across to Ile-Marin, which is a restored settlement on the island right across from St Pierre. So we took this little Dit Gravier across, and we spent the day there. Jane was painting, and these are the stones. They dry their cod. They split and salt and dry their cod on what they call graviers, which is in Newfoundland, they use flakes or what the wooden raised platforms that they use to sun dry the cod. There are no trees there, so they used stones, and that's what a gravier is, a collection of flat, round stones to dry your fish on. We got back to the yacht club there at St Pierre, and this beautiful ketch, I guess it is, came in from, I think, New England somewhere with the 3 young guys on it. 2 young guys and 1 older guy. It's just been restored at some fantastic, I don't know, one of these places in New England somewhere that does this, woodwork that's incredible. And we had to get sailing because, as I said, we had some more stops to make, and there was some weather issues coming. It's now very late in August, September, and the weather can change pretty quickly in September. Anyway, a short hop from St Pierre to St Lawrence Harbour, and on the Burin Peninsula, where Fortune Bay is on the opposite side, and then across Placentia Bay to Avalon Peninsula. And we had one stop we really wanted to make on Avalon, which is St Brides. It's a nice fishing harbor, very friendly people there. It's a little bit tricky getting in there. In onshore winds, it can be difficult, but we had no problem. They helped us, gave us a good spot. And oops, that's my timer. But the thing that there's Cape St. Mary's Ecological Reserve is there, and it's a fantastic bird colony right out at the end of the peninsula. And there's dozens of species of nesting birds, but this late in the summer, it's pretty much all gannets. And this is just a little video of the gannet colony there. And you can see there's still some fluffy chicks in there. It was blowing. Jane wanted to paint, but it was too windy. She couldn't get her paper out. It kept taking off. So we had a nice walk anyway. Oh, and we got all the way out there. Somebody just on the dock said, "Here, take my truck," and gave us their truck too, because it's like 20 miles outside of town. And of course, there's no buses or anything. So we had this brand new diesel truck. I think it was his wife's brand new diesel truck. But as I said, there was a weather issue coming in. What it was, late September, it's Hurricane Dorian, which had been plowing up the coast and, had done a lot of damage in Bahamas and Florida, and then looked like it was going out in the Atlantic and it was going to be all done. And the black area here is over 50 knots of wind, and that's Dorian, Nova Scotia. So we'll just quickly go, because we're almost out of time, I think. Yeah, we've got about 9 minutes left. We motor sailed all the way around from St. Brides up to Burgeo Harbor, because we wanted to get off the south coast, because Dorian was coming up from the south and pushing lots of water, and St. Brides has had problems with hurricanes before. They've had some very bad damage there. The breakwater's been taken out, so that we really didn't want to try and hunker down in any of these coves that were all facing south. So we got all the way down around Cape Race and up to Burgeo, which is a big fishing harbor. And then from there, we popped up to St. John's, which is, of course, is Newfoundland's capital. And some nice people came and loaned us these giant balloon fenders, because they were worried that, the storm would be so bad that the boat might be damaged. But leaving there, Jane, back to you.
Sure. Yeah. So the pilot in St. John's walked down the dock and advised us actually not to stay there in St. John's, because the waves can come piling in the harbor, and we were right at the far end, so there'll be a lot of surge in the harbor. So we left, and the boat that was behind us, this big aluminum Netherlands expedition boat, left as well. And so we went around Cape St. Francis into Conception Bay and went to Royal Newfoundland Yacht Club in Long Pond in Manuels. So here we're on the dock. We're actually being blown off the dock here. So it went up to about 40 knots. So, strong winds, but nothing terrible.
Yep, this little animation shows Dorian coming up the coast. And I know we talked to Kid and Adrian, who were in the previous on Splice, and I think they said they saw 70 knots in Burgeo on the south coast, but they were well prepared. They were spider webbed off the dock, so they were held off. But you can just see in this little animation what Dorian did. It looked like it was going out in the Atlantic, which they often do, curve out, but then it curved in, and the center of it passed well west of us, and it more went up the Belle Isle, which is the channel on the west coast of Newfoundland. So we were fine. We really didn't see a whole lot of wind at all. A couple of sleepless nights. That's our friends Bert and Delcy came down to check on us, and yeah, we were fine. And from there, we're making our way to Lewisport because that's where our boat is now. On the central east coast of Newfoundland is a great marina in Notre Dame Bay, which is fabulous cruising. It's a little bit like the Gulf Islands. There's anchorages everywhere. This is Bay de Verde, big shrimp fishing town. And we did tie to one of these big shrimp boats overnight. And that's where the man said, "Don't tie to him or you'll be getting up early." Anyway, this is after the storm went through, Dorian, the weather was now in early September, and the weather became very unsettled and there was more storms. This is at Bonavista Bay. Bonavista, yeah, and we often go there. There's a really nice harbor there. And this is Jane. Take it away.
Yeah, so there is tuna fishing off of Newfoundland. And so there was a couple of tuna brought into the fish plant at Bonavista. So I walked over. They were just finishing butchering like a 600-pounder. The big ones had already gone off to Japan. So I asked the fisherman if I could buy some tuna, and he said there was a big pile of it in the middle of the table. He took out his big knife and just whacked it in half, put it in a plastic bag, and handed it to me, no charge. So we had, grilled tuna. We had salad niçoise. Couldn't be any fresher. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, it was so nice. Yeah. It's the second time that's happened. In Boston, somebody gave us tuna right on the dock too.
We have 4 minutes now, Mike.
So that's pretty much it for the harbors that we're going to cover. I think we'll leave it there. You can just see on this little chartlet here that we're here at Bonavista, and we've got a few harbors to go to get up to Lewisport and into Notre Dame Bay. We don't really have time to cover those, but fortunately we had nice sailing. The weather was still good, and we still had a week of fine weather to get our boat hauled out and the sails off, where it's still sitting because the pandemic came along, and we left Newfoundland Thanksgiving. I think it was
just after Thanksgiving. It was probably the last week in October.
That we left Newfoundland in 2019.
Yep.
And of course, true to Newfoundland hospitality, we were busily tying our cover on in the marina, and a nice man came around and said, "Hey, I bet you'd like to come for Thanksgiving dinner." So we didn't know them, but they had us over to their house, and we had a turkey dinner. So it was great. And yeah, Jane sewed up this little cover, and the boat's been sitting there ever since, and we haven't been able to go back. So, but please get in touch with us. We've got mail or on our website, Gone Sailing Finn Evans, or we're on Facebook. All under, if you look for Gone Sailing, we're there. And we love to talk about sailing or Newfoundland. And there's a complete summary PDF that shows all the harbors from Lake Ontario right to Lewisport, just a list. And most of the slides are there. So if you have any interest in traveling that way, please check that out.
And we have spent virtually every summer since 2013 out in Newfoundland and up to Labrador. And we have videos of all of those trips on our website. But just wondering if there are any final questions. I've been answering them as we go. Somebody, maybe Mike, you want to answer this one. Somebody asked about, what was our favorite feature of the Naiad?
Oh boy, it's got so many. But I think, it's a good sailboat, and it's got great accommodation. The center cockpit and the interior is so nice. It's so comfortable. The stern cabin and engine room. It's got a really easy to access engine room. So Yeah, and
I'm glad you said that because that's exactly what I said.
oh, good. Well, we'd win that game that's on TV. Yeah, I think it's probably time. Yeah, we've got 1 minute.
Bobby's probably going to come on here now and sign off.
Yep. Looks
All
like
right. Well, Jane and Mike, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. It's the first one that I've seen so far in the show about Newfoundland. So that was great. And everybody else who joined us, thank you very much. It's great to have you here. Now, I just want to mention our sponsors. Freedom Marine Yacht Sales in Vancouver are the sponsors of VIBS. Please make sure to check out all the features we have online, like the info booth. And I hope you enjoy a great rest of the show.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. We'll see you out in Newfoundland, hopefully, if they ever let us back there. Good night. Oh.
Good night.
Oh, yeah. The season starts.